for you in your community. So come on and listen to us and tune us in. Get on our Facebook, Instagram, and all. As we're doing it right here for you in your community with Rainier Avenue Radio World. And God is an inspiration of gospel music. Also, we're doing a lot of different things in your community. We give out free food. We give out a lot of things in the community. We do a lot of shows. We do a lot of things on the sports part, and we want you to come on out and tune us in and come to the community, and we do a lot of things in your community. So make sure you go to our website, Rainier Avenue Radio World, and also go to the God Is website and look us up and see what we do in your community, something maybe you might like. So come on by and check us out from 11 to 2. Free food giveaway.
Hi, it's your favorite Rainier Avenue Radio host from the Clean Greens Living Live show. It's Queen Bree
and Robin T.
Our show is live every Thursday at 3:30 p.m. Pacific Standard Time with topics ranging from life on the farm, health and wellness, and race and social justice.
We feature guests each week with expertise in activism, entrepreneurship, healing, and food justice.
So come join your girls live every Thursdays at 3:30 p.m. Pacific Standard Time on the Clean Greens Living Live show. You can even call in and be a part of the show. And
if you or a family member are 55 or over and need nursing home level care, but want to keep living where you are, check out Providence Elder Place PACE. This program offers healthcare, housing, transportation, and recreational activities. There are no copays or deductibles, and it's covered through Medicare and Medicaid. Providence Elder Place PACE works to keep you healthy and in your home. Call 206-320-5325 or visit providence.org Elder Place. Providence.org Elder Place.
This is Rainier Avenue Radio World.
Welcome to Rainier Avenue Radio. This is Afternoons with Monique, recording live in Seattle, Washington, every Thursday at 1 p.m.
Good afternoon, Seattle. Happy holidays, everyone. You are on Rainier Avenue Radio, and today I have the pleasure of inviting a family pioneer in the Seattle area. John Lundin had been with us from the beginning. He was born and raised in Seattle, and his family had been here for a long time. And one of the things that I love about living in America is that one can pursue many interests in one's lives and do very well at it. And so without further ado, I would like to introduce you to the multi-talented lawyer, author, historian, ski historian, Mr. John Lundin. Please welcome Mr. Lundin to the show.
Thank you, Monique, and thank you for having me. Hello, everyone. Glad to be here.
Yeah, so I have an opportunity to read your website and find your history and your biography is quite fascinating. So I wanted to have a chance to invite you on the show and get to know you and let Seattle people, once again, if those who haven't met you or had a chance to read your book, learn a little bit more about the author, premier author of Alpine Northwest skiing. So, John, tell us a little bit about your history. I know that your family have been in the Seattle area for quite some time. So will you tell us about that?
Well, as you said, Monique, I was born and raised in Seattle, went to undergraduate school and law school at the University of Washington, although I also have, turn off my phone here.
All right.
Like as if we were on live. And although I have a master's in urban and regional planning from George Washington University in Washington, D.C., I practiced law both in Washington, D.C. and Seattle for many, many years. I was originally a trial lawyer for the U.S. Department of Justice, originally in the Civil Rights Division, and later an assistant United States attorney in Seattle.
Right.
Although my office was in Seattle, I practiced all over the country, probably spent a third of my time up in Alaska, which was very interesting, and I loved every minute of that.
Mm-hmm.
And after practicing law for many years, as my friends tell me, I reinvented myself as an historian and author. And that's kind of an interesting transition to follow.
Right. And you were a federal lawyer for over 20 years? Or even
Yes.
A lot longer.
A lot longer than 20 years.
Right. Your whole career were in law. And I had a chance to talk with you, and we won't get a chance to hear too many of those fascinating federal cases that you handle, because I wanted to talk about your writing and skiing most of today's episode. That might have to be another episode where we want to hear about all your interesting legal cases in the federal courts.
I'd love to do that.
Yeah. So John has been a founding member of the Washington State Ski and Snowboard Museum, the WSSSM, and he works with the National Nordic Museum in Seattle and the Center for Regional History at the Community Library in Ketchum, Idaho. Tell us, how did you get transition from law to writing, and particularly skiing and the history of alpine skiing in Washington and Idaho?
Well, Monique, I guess my interest in history goes way back to my family. We were early settlers of the West, and that's a heritage I'm very proud of. And that got me interested initially in reading about the early days in the West, and because my family took part in it. The first Lundin to arrive in this country came in the late 1880s. He was a blacksmith from Sweden, and he ended up in Deadwood, Dakota Territory, an area made famous by the HBO series Deadwood. Oh. And he was there shortly after Sitting Bull and the Sioux forces killed General Custer. Crazy Horse was still leading his Native American forces, and Wild Bill Hickok and Calamity Jane were there. So he was there at the beginning in a very, very unstructured time of our history. And my grandfather was born and raised there. That was on my father's side. The other father's great-grandparent, my great-grandparents on the father's side, came from Scotland. And originally they made a stop in Canada, then came to the United States again in the 1860s to the mining camps in the West. My great-grandfather McFall met his wife, who was a Campbell, in a mining camp in Nevada. And in 1881, they moved to the Wood River Valley. That was a big new silver strike then. And that's where Sun Valley was later located. So I've had my roots go back to the Sun Valley area to 1881. Wow. The McFalls had high-end hotels there, both in Bellevue, Idaho, and Shoshone, Idaho, which was a nearby transportation center and railroad town. The Campbells were blacksmiths. They were landowners. They had 41 silver mines over the years, and one Campbell was the Blaine County Sheriff, and another was the Idaho Inspector of Mines. The McFall connection, that's interesting to the Wild West. In 1900, he built the McFall Hotel in Shoshone, Idaho, as I mentioned. Right. And in fall 1900, Butch Cassidy, the Sundance Kids, and the Hole in the Wall gang stayed at the hotel.
Wow.
And
famous movie.
Yeah, everyone has seen the movie. It seems like so far away, so far in the history. Right. But my grandmother was 10 years old and living in the hotel, and likely interacted with Butch and Sundance and the boys in the lobby. So I'm not that far removed from that historic era. Wow. And my mother's father came from an old English family that settled in New York in 1668. And he went to Cornell, where he rowed, and he was on the crew that started Cornell's domination of intercollegiate rowing. And he dropped out of Cornell Law School in March of 1898 to go to the Klondike Gold Rush. And he spent a year mining for gold in the Klondike at minus 40 degrees. And actually was one of the few people that found gold.
Oh, wow.
There were 100,000 people that started for the gold rush. Only 30,000 made it because of the rigors of the trip. And of that number, less than 3,000 actually discovered gold. So he was one of the real lucky ones.
Right.
And the newspapers reported that he and his partner brought out between $15,000 and $25,000 of gold dust apiece, which would be worth close to $500,000 in today's dollars.
Wow.
And he settled in Seattle in 1899, became a contractor, and helped build the infrastructure of the growing city. The gold rush converted Seattle from a small regional outpost to a major economic hub. And that was really the start of its success. So those are themes in my life, things that I found very interesting. And I've always done a lot of reading and writing as a result of that. Now the ski history, and I should say that I've done a lot of writing about the history of the Wood River Valley and the development there. But how I got into ski history is a little different. In 2015, an old friend, Dave Moffat, he and I had gone to high school together in Seattle. Mm-hmm. His family owned the 4 ski areas on Snoqualmie Pass. His father started there in 1938. He wanted to start a ski museum. He knew that I was a lifelong skier and my mother had skied as well. So he asked if I'd help out. Mm-hmm. So for that year, we spent a lot of time learning how to start a museum, where to site it, and working with sponsors to raise money and experts in museum structure to how to formulate and present information. Mm-hmm. And we opened in November of 2015 on Snoqualmie Pass, and it's been a great success. And that was fun and interesting. And as part of that, I came across a picture of my mother in 1938 in ski gear taken at the Milwaukee Ski Bowl. And I'd never heard of the Milwaukee Ski Bowl. Mm-hmm. And I started doing some research. And it turns out that Milwaukee Railroad in 1938 opened a ski resort on Snoqualmie Pass at Hyack. It was modeled on Sun Valley's opening 2 years before by Union Pacific in Idaho. Mm-hmm. And it was accessible by train in 2 hours. It had the first overhead cable ski lift, a J-bar, mm-hmm. called a Sun Valley type lift without chairs, a modern ski lodge. And the Seattle Times got involved because newspapers were early promoters of skiing, and they gave free ski lessons to all Seattle high school students.
They should continue to do that.
They should, and it brought tens of thousands of young kids into the sport of skiing that was a fledgling sport at that time, and it was very successful. Mm-hmm. My mother, who had skied much of her life, was working at Queen Anne High School, so she became the advisor to the Queen Anne Ski Club, and for a couple of years brought her kids up to the ski bowl for free lessons. Okay. And so I wrote an essay about that, and I published it on historylink.org, mm-hmm. which is the online encyclopedia of Washington history. Right. And then I ran into someone who told me about ski jumping in Cle Elum. I said, in Cle Elum, you got to be kidding. Uh-huh. Well, Cle Elum, for a number from 1924 through 1934, was one of the major centers for ski jumping in the country, and certainly on the West Coast. And I never heard of it, so I wrote an essay about that. Wow. And I continued getting into these individual topics that I found fascinating and no one knew anything about.
Right.
And I published, I think, 17 essays on ski history on HistoryLink. And then I got a phone call from an editor at History Press, which is located in Charleston, South Carolina. Somehow he'd found out about those essays, and he asked me if I'd put them together in a book, which is great. I didn't have to shop the idea of a book. They contacted me.
They contacted you. Where did you put the essay that they were able to find you?
Well, it's publicly available, and it's a wonderful website. I would really recommend everyone checking it out. They send out weekly email alerts, and it really is a repository of a huge amount of information about the state of Washington.
What is it called?
How he found, pardon me?
What is it called again? One more time?
Historylink.org.
Okay.
And it's one word.
Right.
and everyone should check it out
Yes.
and get their emails. So that ended up with my first book, was called Early Skiing on Snoqualmie Pass. And actually, you have pictures of my 4 books.
Yes.
A, B, C, and D, if you want to pull them up at this point.
Yeah, let's pull that up. Dan, can you pull up the books that John has sent to us?
I provided copies of the covers of the books. Let me continue the saga as we get those up.
Okay.
While I was writing that, my editor at History Press knew that I had a house in Sun Valley. I've had a house in Sun Valley since about 1980. I first skied there in 1960, where I went by train. It was a 24-hour trip from Seattle there, long and arduous, but it was the way to get there in those days. And he asked if I do a history of Sun Valley.
Right.
And I said, well, I'd think about it. I'm not sure I wanted to. And I looked into what was written and saw that the era of ownership by Union Pacific wasn't really covered as much as it should be. So I agreed to write that book. He said, no, you have to write 2 books. We want you to do another book of the Wood River Valley and its history. I said, well, okay, I'll do that. So that led to my middle 2 books. The first is Sun Valley, Ketchum, and Wood River Valley, which is a pictorial history of the area. And then history of skiing, Sun Valley, history from Union Pacific to the Holdings. Both of those were published last year. And Skiing Sun Valley this year won 4 National Ski Awards.
Right.
National Book Awards. And it sold lots of copies. And that led to my last book, Ski Jumping in Washington State. That's actually a picture of my great-grandfather at Deadwood, South Carolina, South Dakota. He's the man in the upper right holding the hammer, showing he's head blacksmith.
Which one is your grandfather?
The one in the upper right holding the hammer.
Oh, the hammer. Okay.
Can you see a family resemblance there?
It's hard to tell with the mustache, and plus he's much younger. Big man there. Okay. Yeah. We sent you 2 emails, Dan. One with the books with 4 covers, and then this link has about 12 or so photos of John's family history as well as skiing history. So let's go over the pictures since we got this now.
Sure. Well, this is my Nat Falls Hotel in Bellevue, Idaho. It's in the middle there with there's 2 stories with the people standing on the second story. His brother-in-law's blacksmith shop and livery stable are shown on the right-hand side of that. This is actually July 3rd, 1903. This was the 4th of July parade in Bellevue, and you can see a picture of the first car in Idaho that's driving there on the...
That's the first car right there?
First car in Idaho in 1903.
Quadricle. Is that tricycle? Quadricle.
Yeah, I couldn't tell you what kind of car it is. It's probably a brand that doesn't exist.
Right. Okay, let's see another photo. We have a lot of photos, so we got to move kind of fast because we got
we probably won't get to many of them. This is my grandfather, Mark Odell, in the Klondike at minus 40 degrees.
Gold mining.
They were real tough.
All of these.
Very tough guys in those days.
Right. Dan? Oh,
this jumping ahead, I got very interested in ski jumping history. And if I will ask everyone a test, where do you think the first ski jumping event happened in Western Washington? Well, the answer is Queen Anne Hill, February 1916. It was the year of the big snow, and the Norwegian businessmen decided to show off the sport they brought from Norway of ski jumping. Queen Anne Hill, the steepest hill on Queen Anne Hill, was converted to a ski jump, and it was fabulously followed, and it just made a huge impression. Everyone loved it. So the local Norwegians decided to hold actual tournaments from that point on. And from 1917 and 1924, they held midsummer ski jumping tournaments at Paradise on Mount Rainier.
Oh, wow.
The only place in the world besides Finse, Norway, that you could hold a summer tournament, according to the press.
Okay.
So I followed the history of ski jumping a lot since I didn't know much about it, and it turns out that was the most followed and popular form of the sport for the first 3 or 4 decades of our sporting history.
Our region have changed so much. At one point, I saw in your book that Snoqualmie was a major local attraction in the 30s, where people congregate from all over to participate in the sport.
Absolutely. That was the center of our early skiing history. It started, at least alpine skiing started in the early 30s there. But again, alpine skiing was a latecomer. Through the 40s, at least, ski jumping was more popular than alpine skiing. But people began skiing on Snoqualmie Pass in the early 30s. The big jump forward was 1934, where Franklin Roosevelt's Civilian Conservation Corps cut a narrow ski run and built a warming hut. And the Seattle Park Department opened the Seattle Municipal Ski Park on Snoqualmie Pass, and it operated as a Seattle Park. And it was the only municipally operated ski area in the country at that point. And that brought legions of people into skiing, although in those days there were no lifts, so people had to walk up the hill and ski down. And it was such an
exercise for the day.
Absolutely. It was such an oddity that there are often more people up there who didn't ski that were watching the people than people actually skiing. But that was kind of the genesis, and skiing grew in popularity after that.
It was a spectator sport.
Spectator sport as well as a participants.
Right.
This happens to be the ski jump that was built at Cle Elum. You can see how steep and big it was. It was one of the biggest in the world. It was said to be one of the biggest in the world, even greater than by 6% than the famous Holmenkollen ski jump in Norway. But this was located 2 miles up the hill behind the city. Wow. So the spectators and competitors had to hike through the snow 2 miles to get up there. And then they would do successive jumps down into the Teanaway Valley, headed north, and have to hike back up. And both the competitors and the spectators were hardy people, because you had to hike for 2 miles to get there and stand outside all day, often in the snowstorms, to watch these things. So
everyone have to stay fit, kind of like you.
Absolutely. So that was just part of our history that is almost lost now. One of the things I've really enjoyed about my writing and research is I'm coming across wonderful stories that people have forgotten about. And if it wasn't for people like me that read them and write about them and publish them, these memories would be lost forever.
Yeah. Okay, let's move to, because we have a lot of pictures and I want to go through them very quickly in the next 3 minutes.
Okay. This is the Sun Valley Lodge. It was opened by Union Pacific Railroad in December 1936. Beautiful. They spent $1.5 million in the middle of the Depression to build this lodge in the wilderness. They really had no intention of a standalone ski lodge. This was an economic asset of the railroad designed to rejuvenate passenger travel that had been decimated by the Great Depression. So this was a way of enticing people to ride the trains in the winter. And it was our first destination ski resort, became a cultural icon, and influenced every single ski area that developed after that.
Very nice.
Want to jump ahead to the next one? Yeah. This is Seattle's Municipal Ski Park on Snoqualmie Pass. You can see how narrow a ski run it is.
Yeah.
And you can see all the people sitting around watching them. And then people have to hike up before they can ski down. But there were, it would attract 2,000 to 3,000 skiers a day. And in 1938, they had 20,000 skier days there. And ski grew because of facilities like this. In 1933, there were 2,000 to 3,000 skiers from Seattle going to the mountains every year,
Wow.
every weekend. And by 1938, skiing was a $3 million
Sports.
business for the state, and there were about 8,000 people a day from Seattle going up. So you can see how quickly it was
Popular.
growing.
Right.
And keep in mind, this is the middle of the Depression.
Wow.
This is where my mother worked. Snoqualmie Ski Bowl was opened in 1938 by the Milwaukee Railroad, designed after the Sun Valley Ski Resort.
Did
you can see there's a picture of the train in the bottom there. They gave ski lessons, and they had a modern ski lodge you can see there.
Yeah, ski lessons round trip, I think, is about $55 these days, not $1.70.
Yeah, $1.70 round trip, and you got to ride in a warm, comfortable train.
Right.
And they actually had a box car where they had either an orchestra or some sort of music, so you could dance going up and going back.
Entertainment, how fun.
Entertainment, yeah. Perfect.
You must have found these in your mom's archives, yeah?
Well, some of them. Here's my mother, actually. That's my mother in 1938 at the Milwaukee Ski Bowl wearing state-of-the-art ski gear.
Wow.
And she did that for several years. She was young and single and attractive, so she was in the newspaper a lot. The reporters loved to follow her. You can't see it, but she's actually wearing a University of Washington crew Letterman sweater.
Really?
And it turns out she was actually pinned or semi-engaged to one of the crew members of the 36 boat that became so popular.
So we have to wrap up because time is almost out completely. So let me mention a few of John's book, Early Skiing on Snoqualmie Pass, A History of Skiing in Washington, published in 2017. Sun Valley, Ketchum, and the Wood River Valley, A Pictorial History of Idaho's Wood River Valley, published in June 2020. Skiing Sun Valley, A History of Union Pacific to the Holdings, and Ski Jumping in Washington State, A Nordic Tradition, published in February 2021. So, here we go. These are the covers for John's books. And I think you have the last book published very recently, Ski Jumping in Washington State, A Nordic Tradition, in February 2021.
Yes, and that was part of an exhibit on ski jumping that I helped formulate that was at the National Nordic Museum this year in Ballard, and that was a companion book. And again, I was blown away about how important ski jumping was in our early years, and I fell in love with it. I'm the first to admit I've never been on a ski jump, and I wouldn't go on a ski jump, but I love the sport. I loved how important it is to our history, and I love bringing those memories forward so other people can enjoy them.
That's wonderful. Now, if people want to learn more about some of these books, can you tell us the website where you have some of your history and these books mentioned, and people can go and check them out and maybe purchase them?
Yes, my website has all the information about what I do. It's my name, www.johnwlundin.com. You can get the books from most local bookstores or from Amazon or national bookstores. Let me mention that I donate my author's profits from all my books to several entities. The Washington books, the author's profits go either to the Washington Ski Museum or the Nordic Museum. And my two Sun Valley books, the profits go to the community library in Ketchum, Idaho. So that's just a contribution I can make to keep history alive. And the books are wonderful. They make great presents. So if you buy them, you get a good book and you make a charitable contribution.
And it's ski season, everybody. So grab those books and check out our history. Thank you so much for joining us on our show, John. Have a great day, everybody. You're on Rainier Avenue Radio. I'm Monique Lee, your host, and Afternoons with Monique is coming to an end. Thank you so much. Have a nice day.